We're back on the couch with Robin Alexander.
And John Murphy.
And it's very, very exciting because today we discussed a book and started to read a book called Gödel, Escher, Bach. And it's usually pronounced Gödel, Escher, Bach.
Oh, it's not Gödel. It's Gödel.
It's usually pronounced Gödel, but it's properly pronounced Gödel.
Oh, properly. Okay, good.
And so, the book, written by Douglas Hofstadter, is fascinating on several levels. It deals with pattern, mind, the meaning of self-reference, and I thought that that has great relevance to how we examine our own lives, how we examine our situation, which includes our lives and others. And even though it seems a little esoteric, a little theoretical, a little mathematical, there are analogs between that kind of analysis of systems that behave in that way, these formal logic systems and math systems, and the way our lives happen, the way they just tumble out. They're not random, we know that, and yet we also know that they're not so tightly controlled that they can be successfully analyzed on a lot of levels. You can't predict how your friends are going to behave, for example, even though you know them well, you have a lot of inputs. So what's the difference between a formal system of logic and math and the behavior of a human being or a group of humans in a society? Well, no short answer to that, but it's an interesting area for exploration and discussion, and it's an area that we're going to touch on and see where it leads us. So when you think of a person, what does that actually mean to you? When you say a person in society, what does that mean to you, to be a person? What does that refer to?
Okay, well, I guess on the simplest level, it's a biological, we're a primate, one of the 5 great apes, and everything that implies. We have the most complex brain of those 5 great apes, and which allows us, one thing I think that makes us really different, correct me if I'm wrong, is this self-consciousness, this, or as the book may say, self-reference. We're aware of our existence.
Now that's an interesting point, because we have a phrase, and again, I often get into analysis of words, not because I'm a word fetishist, but because of the implications that adopting words without examination brings us to. So, for example, if we say self-conscious in terms of a human, well, dogs are self-conscious.
True.
So the label self-consciousness is insufficient to impart the details of what might be meaningfully different between us and a dog.
Correct.
So expand on what you mean by self-conscious.
So maybe it has to do with language and complex language and the ability to construct new concepts almost at will. It's not just what's been taught to us, by the monkey mother. We can come up with new concepts, complex relationships, within a group or a tribe, or even a family, but even more than that. And concepts that we all agree on, which become the shared myths, if you will. Everything from a god to a corporation, and an awareness of our own mortality. And I'm not saying that animals don't grieve necessarily if their mother or their father or their child dies, and I think we've all seen that they can grieve, but we live with this constant awareness that is going to happen one day.
After a certain age, we live with that. And since it hasn't happened and isn't about to happen, it's not imminent. Like if an animal sees an encroaching fire, that's imminent, it's immediate, and it's about as real as anything that the animal can experience. And so they run. So as babies, we have no idea of our own mortality.
Right.
And as children, it's not imminent. So it is kind of part theoretical. It's almost like part fantasy and part real. It's not real until you start to get old, and then it becomes really real, which is a gradation between a theoretical notion and, let's say, an actual fact
Exactly.
in the universe.
Right. And another grade might be just your own grandparent perhaps dying, or a friend's parent dying, or whatever. So there's, and you see it on TV because we have all these, very sophisticated, media around us. So you may read about it in books, you may see it on TV, in a movie, etc., etc. But you're right, I'm agreeing with you. There's gradations, for sure.
So one of the things that Harari points out in, what's the name of the book?
Sapiens.
Sapiens. Is that one of the main differentiations between us and the other great apes is our ability to entertain the theoretical, the fiction. And so not only are our brains more complex in terms of just a quantitative difference, but there occurs at some point a qualitative difference in that we can say if and should and ought and perhaps didn't, although that's kind of implied in animal behavior as well. So what, aside from just brute force and the number of neurons, what do you think it is that's involved in that ability of humans to entertain the counterfactual or the supposed or the mythical? What about the nature of our minds do you think allows us to do that?
I don't know. What about the nature of our minds? I mean, I think it has to do with the ability to imagine. Because if you hope for you have to have an awareness of the future, you have to have this concept of future, and that's things that haven't happened yet.
Do you think a cat ever imagines a full bowl of fish?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it does. If it's given that bowl of fish every single day, but again, maybe it's the complexity of what we can imagine and therefore hope for, plan for, fear, work toward. Well, it's the complexity. And, right now, we live in a society with lots and lots of options that have been presented to us since we're born. So there's, that complexity is there. And you look at it and this appeals to you and that doesn't. For the cat, it's the bowl is either there with the fish or it's not. That's pretty much it.
Do you think that our system of language, and by implication our culture and our history, but very specifically our system of language, in that it kind of quantifies the universe. It breaks the universe down into objects that we have names for, and let's say finite or recognizable actions that we can take, which are verbs, and it's like a big Tinker Toy set or an erector set. You're given the components, and so you can put them together. That toolbox,
Language, for sure.
right? It contains words like if, and would. Now you could say which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do we have the word would because we needed it to think about something that was a modality that, let's say, maybe as you said, the complex human brain can entertain that lower forms cannot? Or is it the other way around, that through the caprice of linguistic manipulation, we can actually come up with concepts that are meaningless, untoward, unprogressive, harmful?
I don't know which came first, but the fact is we do have that capacity and the ability to do that and to construct, not just to, like you said, if and would and perhaps and if only and I'm assuming that that's a result of the complexity that just as all of our all of the things about us that are different from our, common ancestor with the other great apes, whatever differentiated us. I mean, there's other things. There's the thumb and the standing upright, and that leads to a whole different childbearing thing and all of that. Not that one leads to the other. It's that it all happened randomly. So it's not like, well, because we needed this, so we developed it. It's not that, right? I mean,
it co-evolves because of the situation.
Right. It's natural selection based on random mutation.
Right.
It's all based on random mutation. So
they're correlated adaptations, not necessarily one causing the other, but they both happened either because of random inputs that at least weren't harmful. If a random mutation increases your ability to survive, then it's meaningful in that way. And if it gives you a disease, and cuts your life short, it's meaningful in that way. And there are some that are neither helpful nor unhelpful.
Right.
So they tag along inside the successful set, but through no virtue of their own.
Right. But the important thing is, and I think there was another guy at around the same time as Darwin who had a different theory, and Frenchman, I think, with an L, but I could be wrong. But anyway, what I remember learning is about using the giraffe as the example. It's not that the giraffe kept straining to reach the higher leaves, and that's why his neck got longer and his baby had the longer neck. No. It's that whoever had the longer neck when they were born, by chance with this random mutation, they were able to survive. Same, that's what it was. So that was something that had to be worked out. So, we we ended up with this very crazy complex brain, which I guess, well, no, I know, that gave us a power beyond what we would normally be, I don't know, somewhere in the middle of the food chain, let's say. I mean, we're not terribly strong, we're not that fast, faster than some, not as fast as others, eyesight better than some, not as good as others, etc., etc. But then we got this brain that changed everything and put us sort of, we got to pass go or whatever. We went to the head of the line, if you will, and it gave us that ability to control everything, not because we were granted this right by some magic that came from the sky, but because of the complexity of our brains that evolved by chance.
We have to do a commercial for Coca-Cola now. We'll be right back after we see Don Draper sitting cross-legged at the top.